The boot slammed into Sarah Chen's spine before she even heard him coming. Her face hit the mud hard, the taste of Virginia clay mixing with blood from her split lip. "Stay down there, China doll. That's where you belong." Marcus Webb's voice dripped with contempt as his squad erupted in laughter around her. What they didn't see, what they couldn't see through their arrogance, was the way her fingers had already calculated the wind speed from the grass pattern, measured the distance to the tree line, mapped every exit point in her peripheral vision. Muscle memory from a place they couldn't imagine. In 47 minutes, those same hands would do something impossible. But first, she had to survive the next hour. If watching someone get crushed like this makes your blood boil, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to take you places you won't believe, and I need you with me until the very end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Sarah's story travels across the world. Trust me, you're going to want to tell people about what happens next. Sarah pushed herself up slowly, deliberately, letting the mud drip from her face. She didn't wipe it away, didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her react. Marcus Webb stood over her, 6'4" of pure marine arrogance, his shaved head gleaming in the early morning sun at Quantico. "Did I say you could get up?" His voice cut through the laughter of his squad. Jackson, Rodriguez, Kim, and Patterson, all circling like wolves who'd caught the scent of wounded prey. "No, Sergeant." Her voice came out steady, quiet. The kind of quiet that could be mistaken for weakness. Webb's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you on your knees?" "Because I need to see the target, Sergeant. That's what we're here for, isn't it?" The laughter stopped. For just a second, something flickered across Webb's face. Surprise, maybe anger. Sarah couldn't tell which, and she didn't care. She stood fully, her 5'3" frame dwarfed by the men around her, and walked toward the equipment station. "Oh, this is gonna be good," Jackson muttered to Rodriguez. "How much you want to bet she cries before lunch?" 50 says she quits during the first qualification round, Rodriguez shot back. "Make it 100. I say she doesn't even make it to the firing line." Kim's voice carried that particular brand of cruelty that came from insecurity, dressed up as confidence. Chief Instructor Davis stood at the equipment table, his weathered face unreadable. 30 years in the Corps had taught him to see things others missed, but this morning he was following orders. Orders that came from somewhere above his pay grade. "Thompson," he called out, using the cover name Sarah had been assigned for this operation. "You're up." She approached the table. The other candidates had already claimed their rifles. Sleek Remington 700s with pristine scopes, match-grade ammunition, custom stocks. What waited for her was something else entirely. "Serial number 047, Davis read from his clipboard, not meeting her eyes. M40A6, issued 2006. Sarah picked up the rifle. The stock was cracked, held together with electrical tape. The scope was clouded, the adjustment turrets stripped from years of abuse. She worked the bolt. It caught twice before sliding home. "Ammunition allocation." Davis handed her 3 boxes. Sarah opened the first one, her trained eye immediately catching what civilian shooters would miss. Different lot numbers, different powder loads. Each round would shoot to a different point of impact. "Problem, candidate?" Webb's voice came from behind her, too close. "No, Sergeant." "Good, because that's the best equipment we've got for someone with your qualifications." The word dripped with sarcasm. Sarah said nothing. She gathered her gear and moved toward the assigned firing position, Station 13, naturally. The worst spot on the range. Full eastern sun exposure. Crosswinds amplified by the gap in the berms. A concrete barrier that would trap her brass and create a smoke cloud with every shot. Patterson whistled low. Damn, they really want her gone. She doesn't belong here, Webb said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is Scout Sniper School, not some diversity quota program. Women don't have what it takes. Maybe this one's different, Jackson offered, though his voice lacked conviction. Different? Webb laughed. Look at her. Showed up in a beat-up Toyota like she's going to the grocery store. Gear looks like she bought it at a yard sale. She's probably some general's daughter who threw a tantrum until daddy got her a slot. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Sarah had chosen every piece of that yard sale gear specifically. The worn boots had carried her through 3 combat deployments. The faded jacket hid a scar from Helmand Province. The rifle, calluses on her hands, told a story written in gunpowder and blood. She reached her station and set down her equipment with mechanical precision. No wasted movement, no hesitation. She began her setup while around her the range came alive with the sounds of loading magazines, adjusting scopes, the metallic clicks of bolts being worked. "Candidates, attention!" Davis's voice boomed across the range. "Today's qualification consists of 4 stages. 100 yards, prone supported. 500 yards, prone unsupported. 1,000 yards, precision fire. And, if you make it that far, moving targets at 750. Pass, fail. No second chances. Questions?" Sarah raised her hand. Webb groaned audibly. "Here we go." "Candidate Thompson, speak," Davis acknowledged. "Wind call, sir. Who makes it?" "You do. This is individual qualification, not a buddy shoot." Sarah nodded and lowered her hand. Around her, several candidates shifted nervously. Reading wind at distance was an art form, one that took years to master. "She doesn't even know how wind calls work," Rodriguez muttered. "This is embarrassing." But Sarah was already watching the grass at 100 yards, then 300, then 500. Her eyes tracked the patterns, calculating the velocity differential at each distance. It was second nature, burned into her brain through countless hours on ranges from California to Afghanistan. "Stations," Davis commanded. Sarah went prone behind her damaged rifle. The scope image was blurry, the reticle canted slightly left. She made mental notes. Compensate 2 clicks right, adjust parallax manually, account for the cant in her hold. "100-yard line is hot. You have 10 rounds, 10 minutes. On my command, fire." The range erupted with gunfire. Sarah squeezed off her first round, felt the rifle's unfamiliar recoil, and watched through the terrible scope as her bullet impacted center mass on the target. She worked the bolt. It fought her, but she muscled it through, and fired again. Beside her, at Station 12, a male candidate named Morrison was blazing through his ammunition, confident and fast. Beyond him, Webb's squad was putting on a show, each shot punctuated with cocky commentary. "X-ring! Dead center! This is too easy!" Sarah tuned them out. She had a rhythm, born from muscle memory, that ran deeper than conscious thought. 7 seconds to acquire, 7 seconds to hold, 3 seconds to reset. The 7-7-3 protocol, though she didn't consciously remember where she'd learned it anymore. Her 7th shot was interrupted by a boot that accidentally kicked her rifle just as she squeezed the trigger. The round went wild. "Oh man, sorry about that." Kim's voice was anything but apologetic. "Didn't see you down there." "You're so small." Sarah said nothing. She simply reset, found her natural point of aim again, and continued. 3 shots left. 3 minutes on the clock. "Cease fire! Cease fire! Make your weapons safe and stand by for target scoring." Sarah engaged her safety and stood, letting the rifle hang from its sling. Her back ached from the position, and her right eye was watering from the terrible scope. She didn't show it. Davis walked the line with his spotting scope, calling out scores. Morrison, Station 12, 9 out of 10, good shooting. Webb, Station 4, perfect 10. Thompson, Station 13. The pause was longer than it should have been. Sarah watched Davis's face as he examined her target through the scope. His expression shifted, just slightly, but she caught it. Confusion. Then something else. Suspicion. 7 out of 10, passing score. Webb's laughter carried across the range. 7? My grandmother could shoot better than that, and she's been dead for 10 years. His squad joined in, but Sarah noticed Davis was still looking at her target. She knew what he was seeing. 7 holes in the paper, all of them through the exact same point in the X-ring. The 3 misses were her throwing rounds, the ones she'd identified as defective based on weight and seated depth. She'd deliberately wasted them rather than let them ruin her group. But explaining that would reveal too much. 500-yard line, Davis called. Candidates, move to your stations. The walk to the 500-yard line gave Webb's squad time to close in. They surrounded Sarah like a pack, using their bodies to jostle her, step on her heels, force her to stumble. Oops, didn't see you there, Patterson said as his shoulder checked her hard enough to make her drop her ammunition can. The rounds spilled into the dirt. Sarah knelt to gather them, and that's when Jackson accidentally kicked sand directly into her face. It burned her eyes, filled her nose and mouth. God, you're clumsy, Jackson said. Maybe you should go back to… Where are you from, anyway? China? Japan? One of those places? California, Sarah said quietly, still gathering her ammunition. Born in Sacramento. Whatever. Point is, you don't belong here. She finished collecting her rounds, stood, and kept walking. Every instinct screamed at her to respond, to demonstrate exactly how wrong they were. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was to document, to observe, to gather evidence of the systematic hazing that had driven 7 female candidates out of the program in the past 2 years. Still, her fingers tightened on the rifle. Just for a second. At the 500-yard line, the wind had picked up. Sarah could see it in the mirage, that shimmering heat layer that rose from the ground. The wind was gusting, maybe 15 knots, variable direction. Difficult shooting for anyone. She set up her position, and that's when she noticed the bipod legs weren't locking. Someone had loosened the screws. She tightened them with her fingers, but without tools, they wouldn't hold under recoil. "Stations!" Davis commanded. Sarah lay prone, wedging her left hand under the rifle's forend to stabilize it. It wasn't ideal, but it would work. She'd shot worse positions in worse conditions. 500-yard line is hot. 10 rounds, 12 minutes. Fire when ready. This time, Sarah worked faster. She had to. Without a stable bipod, her position would deteriorate with each shot. She fired 3 quick rounds, adjusting between each as the bipod shifted. The rifle wanted to cant, to twist with each recoil impulse. On her 4th shot, Rodriguez walked past and stumbled into her water bottle, spilling it across her shooting mat. The moisture turned the dirt to mud, and now Sarah was lying in slop. "My bad," Rodriguez said with a grin. Sarah kept shooting. Mud caked her uniform, her face, her hands. The rifle scope was fogging from her breath in the humid morning air. She had to wipe it between shots, losing precious time. "Candidate Thompson!" Davis's voice cut through the shooting. "You have 3 minutes remaining." 3 minutes. 4 shots left. Sarah forced herself to slow down, to trust the fundamentals. Breathing. Trigger press. Follow through. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, and she rode the recoil, already acquiring the next target. Her last shot went out with 30 seconds to spare. "Cease fire! Weapons safe!" Sarah cleared her rifle and stood, mud dripping from her entire front side. She looked like she'd been dragged behind a truck. The other candidates looked pristine by comparison. Davis moved down the line with his spotting scope again. This time, Sarah saw his hand tighten on the scope when he reached her target. Webb, Station 4, 9 out of 10. Morrison, Station 12, 8 out of 10. He paused at her target, spending longer than necessary. Thompson, Station 13, 8 out of 10. 8? Webb's voice was sharp with anger. How the hell did she get 8? Davis lowered the spotting scope. Because she put 8 rounds into an area the size of a quarter. The 2 misses were equipment failure. You can see the keyholing. The bullets tumbled in flight. The range went quiet. 8 rounds through a quarter at 500 yards, with damaged equipment and constant harassment, wasn't just good. It was exceptional. Luck, Webb said flatly. Had to be. But Sarah saw the look on Davis's face. He was a sniper instructor with 3 decades of experience. He knew the difference between luck and skill. 1,000-yard line, Davis announced, but his eyes never left Sarah. Candidates, you have 30 minutes to set up. This is where we separate the snipers from the shooters. As the group moved to the 1,000-yard line, Sarah felt the weight of eyes on her. Not just Webb's squad anymore. Other candidates were watching now, wondering. Some with curiosity, others with something that looked like concern. Because if she could shoot like that with sabotaged equipment under harassment, what could she do with a fair chance? Webb pulled his squad into a huddle near the equipment shed. Sarah was too far away to hear the words, but she didn't need to. She could read the body language, the aggressive gestures, the nervous glances in her direction. They were scared, and scared men were dangerous men. Chief Instructor Davis appeared at her elbow, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I don't know who you are, but I know what you are. I've been doing this long enough to recognize a shooter when I see one. Sarah kept her eyes forward. I'm just trying to qualify, sir. Bullshit. Davis's voice was flat. That's 773 rhythm. I've only seen that pattern once before. And that operator is in the history books now. So either you trained with someone who knew the protocol, or... He trailed off, studying her face. Or what, sir? Or you are that someone, and the history books got it wrong. He straightened up, raising his voice to normal volume. 1,000-yard line, stations! Sarah moved to Station 13 one more time. The sun was higher now, creating heat mirage that made the targets dance and shimmer. The wind was still gusting, and at this distance, a single mile-per-hour miscalculation would mean a complete miss. She set up her rifle and noticed immediately that her rear sight had been adjusted. Someone had cranked the elevation drum while she wasn't looking. She checked the numbers. They'd added 30 clicks. At 1,000 yards, that would put her shots 10 feet over the target. Sarah glanced at Webb's position. He was watching her with barely concealed anticipation, waiting for her to fail. She left the sight where it was and began calculating in her head. If they expected her to zero the rifle, she could use their sabotage against them. 30 clicks high at 1,000 yards meant she could aim at the bottom edge of the target and let the cant bring her shots into the center. It was backwards, counterintuitive, and it would look completely wrong to anyone watching her sight picture. Perfect. 1,000-yard line is hot. 10 rounds, 15 minutes. Sarah settled into her position and began to shoot. Each round went out smooth and clean, her trigger press perfect despite the mud caking her hands. She aimed low, trusting the math, trusting the fundamentals. On her 6th shot, she heard Webb's voice. She's aiming at the dirt. She doesn't even know how to hold over at distance. But on her 10th shot, she heard something else. Silence. The kind of silence that falls when something impossible has just happened. "Ceasefire! Weapons safe!" Davis practically ran to his spotting scope. Sarah watched his face as he glassed her target, watched his expression cycle through disbelief, shock, and something that looked almost like fear. "Thompson, Station 13. His voice carried across the suddenly silent range. 10 out of 10. Group size, 4 inches. 4 inches at 1,000 yards. With damaged equipment. With sabotaged sights. With her uniform caked in mud and her face covered in dirt, and her hands shaking from the cold and the adrenaline. The range erupted in whispers. Sarah stood, keeping her face neutral, but inside she was counting the minutes until this mission was over, counting the ways this could still go wrong. Because Webb was walking toward her now, and his face was the color of raw meat. "You," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "Who the hell are you?" Sarah met his eyes. "I'm nobody, Sergeant. Just trying to earn my place." "Bullshit. Nobody shoots like that. Not with that equipment. Not under these conditions." He grabbed her rifle, examining the sight. His face went white when he saw the elevation setting. You shot 30 clicks high and compensated in your hold?" "I shot where the rifle was pointed, Sergeant." "That's impossible. The math alone." He stopped, his mind working. "Unless you calculated the ballistic arc in your head. Unless you've done this so many times that it's automatic." Sarah said nothing. Webb's hand shot out, grabbing her right forearm. His thumb pressed into the scar tissue there, the long white line that ran from wrist to elbow. "What's this? Where'd you get this scar?" "Accident, when I was younger." "What kind of accident?" "The stupid kind." He tightened his grip, and Sarah's training almost took over. Almost. She could disarm him in less than a second, could put him on his back before his squad even registered movement. But that wasn't the mission. "You're lying," Webb said. "About everything. Your name, your background, why you're here." He leaned closer. "I'm going to figure out who you really are. And when I do—" "Sergeant Webb!" Davis's voice cracked like a whip. "Release that candidate immediately!" Webb let go, but his eyes never left Sarah's face. "This isn't over." "No, Sergeant," Sarah said quietly. "It isn't." As he walked away, Sarah felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. A text from Colonel Martinez, the officer overseeing her undercover operation. "Excellent work. Continue to document. Extraction available if compromised." Sarah deleted the message and pocketed the phone. She wasn't compromised. Not yet. But the look in Webb's eyes told her that the worst was still coming. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, she'd shown too much, revealed too much skill, pushed too hard against the cover story that was supposed to protect her. The mission was to document the hazing, to gather evidence, to stay invisible. She was supposed to be a victim. Instead, she'd become a target. The lunch break should have been a refuge, but Sarah knew better. She sat alone at the furthest table in the mess hall, her back against the wall, eyes tracking every entrance. The habit was so ingrained she didn't even think about it anymore. Webb's squad occupied the center of the room like they owned it, their voices carrying over everyone else's. "I'm telling you, something's not right about her," Webb said, loud enough for Sarah to hear. "Nobody shoots like that without serious training." Jackson leaned in, his voice lower. "Maybe she just got lucky." 3 good runs don't mean 4-inch group at 1,000 yards with sabotaged equipment isn't luck, you idiot. That's skill. professional-level skill. Webb slammed his tray down. I want to know where she trained, who taught her, why she's really here. Rodriguez picked at his food. You want me to check her background again? I've got a buddy in admin who owes me a favor. Do it, and be thorough. I want everything: schools, jobs, family, social media. Everything. Sarah kept eating, her face neutral, but her mind was racing. If they dug too deep, they'd find the legend that had been carefully constructed for her cover identity. It would hold up to casual scrutiny, but determined digging might reveal the seams. She made a mental note to contact Martinez after lunch. Patterson walked past her table, pausing just long enough to accidentally knock her water bottle onto the floor. Oops, clumsy me. Sarah stood, picked up the bottle, and refilled it at the fountain. When she returned, her tray had been moved to a different table, one directly in the sunlight, where the heat would make eating miserable. She picked it up without comment and returned to her original spot. Did you see that? Kim laughed. She just keeps taking it, doesn't even fight back. Maybe she can't, Webb said thoughtfully. Maybe all she's got is shooting. No spine, no fight. Sarah finished her meal in silence, then stood to clear her tray. As she passed Webb's table, she heard him say, "Moving target test this afternoon. Let's see how she does when the pressure's really on." The afternoon heat was brutal. Sarah stood at the firing line, watching the range crew set up the moving target systems, mechanical silhouettes that would traverse left to right at varying speeds and distances. This was the test that separated amateurs from professionals. Reading wind was one thing. Calculating lead on a moving target while compensating for distance, wind, and your own heartbeat was something else entirely. Chief Davis addressed the group. Moving targets at 750 yards. 5 targets, 5 shots. Each target will appear for exactly 12 seconds. You'll have 3 seconds of warning before exposure. Miss your window, you miss your shot. Pass rate is 4 out of 5. Questions? Morrison raised his hand. Do we get a practice run? Negative. This is a one-shot deal. In combat, targets don't give you rehearsals. Davis paused, his eyes scanning the group. Webb, you're up first. Webb took his position with theatrical confidence. He'd done this before. Sarah could tell by the way he set up his rifle, the angle of his body, the placement of his support hand. This wasn't new to him. The warning tone sounded. 3 seconds later, the first target appeared, moving at a slow walk pace. Webb fired almost immediately. Hit. The second target moved faster. Webb tracked it smoothly, led it by the right amount. Hit. By the fifth target, a runner moving at full sprint, Webb was showing off, waiting until the target was nearly off the rail before taking his shot. The round caught it center mass. 5 for 5, Davis called. Excellent shooting, Sergeant Webb. Webb stood, accepting the congratulations of his squad with barely concealed smugness. As he passed Sarah, he said, "Try to keep up, China doll." 3 more candidates went before Sarah's turn. 2 passed with 4 out of 5. 1 failed with only 2 hits. The pressure was mounting with each failure. Thompson, you're up. Sarah moved to the firing line and set up her battered rifle. The scope was still cloudy, the bipod still loose. But those were problems she could work around. What concerned her more was the way Webb's entire squad had positioned themselves directly behind her firing line, close enough that she could hear their breathing. Bet she doesn't even hit one, Rodriguez whispered. I'll take that bet, Jackson replied. She'll hit one, then fall apart. The warning tone sounded. Sarah controlled her breathing, forcing her heart rate down through sheer will. 7 beats per minute slower. 6. 5. The physiological control that had taken years to master kicked in automatically. The first target appeared, slow walker, left to right. Sarah tracked it, calculated the lead, squeezed. The rifle bucked. Through the terrible scope, she saw the target rock back. Hit. Lucky, someone muttered behind her. The second target came faster. Sarah's calculation was instant, automatic. Lead by 18 inches, account for the crosswind pushing right to left. Fire. Hit. Behind her, the whispers stopped. The third target was a runner, and it appeared from the opposite direction, right to left. Sarah had to reverse her lead calculation, factor in the different wind angle. She fired. The target spun. Hit. Holy shit, Kim breathed. The fourth target was the fastest yet, and it appeared during a wind gust that would have pushed most shooters' rounds a foot off target. Sarah waited one heartbeat for the gust to pass, then fired into the temporary lull. Hit. Webb's voice came from behind her, tight with anger. The fifth one's impossible. No one's hit it all day. The warning tone sounded. Sarah knew what was coming. The final target would be a full sprint, probably with an irregular pattern to simulate combat movement. Sure enough, when it appeared, it wasn't following the rail smoothly. It stuttered, jerked, mimicking someone running under fire. Sarah's training took over completely. She stopped thinking and just reacted, her body and rifle becoming a single weapon system. Led by 2 feet, compensate for the stutter, fire between heartbeats. The target's head snapped back. Center mass would have been a hit. Headshot was perfection. The range went silent. Even Davis stood frozen, his spotting scope still trained on the target. 5 for 5, he finally said, his voice strange. All center mass or better. Thompson, where did you train? Sarah safed her weapon and stood. My father taught me, sir. He liked to shoot. Your father? Davis's tone made it clear he didn't believe a word. Your father taught you to calculate lead on irregular moving targets at 750 yards. He was very patient, sir. Webb stepped forward, his face flushed. I want to see her equipment, right now. Davis frowned. Sergeant, that's not... Sir, with respect, something's not right here. I want to verify her equipment hasn't been modified. It was a smart move, Sarah had to admit. If he found any custom modifications, he could claim she'd been cheating. Davis hesitated, then nodded. Sarah handed over her rifle. Webb examined it with meticulous attention, checking the scope, the trigger, the barrel. He found nothing because there was nothing to find. The rifle was exactly what it appeared to be, old, damaged, barely functional, which made what she'd just done even more impossible to explain. Satisfied? Davis asked. Webb's jaw worked. I want to run ballistics on her ammunition, verify it's standard issue. You think she smuggled in custom loads? Davis's patience was clearly wearing thin. I think we should verify everything about her is legitimate. Davis pulled 3 rounds from Sarah's ammunition box and handed them to Webb. Go check with the armorer, but you're wasting your time. As Webb stalked off with Jackson following, Rodriguez moved closer to Sarah. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Look, I don't know what your deal is, but you should probably watch your back. Webb doesn't like being shown up, especially by... By what? Sarah met his eyes. By a woman? By someone who doesn't look like she belongs here? Rodriguez had the grace to look uncomfortable. I was going to say by a candidate. But yeah, the other stuff doesn't help your case. I'm not trying to show anyone up. I'm just trying to qualify. Well, you're doing a hell of a lot more than qualifying. He glanced toward where Webb had disappeared. And that's going to be a problem. The ballistics check came back clean, naturally. Sarah's ammunition was exactly what had been issued. Mismatched lots, inconsistent powder charges, the works. Which meant her performance couldn't be explained away by better equipment. She was just that good. The afternoon session moved to what Davis called practical application, shooting while fatigued, under stress, with compromised positions. First up was the sprint and shoot. Run 400 meters in full gear, then engage targets within 60 seconds while your heart rate was still elevated. Sarah watched the first few candidates struggle. Their breathing was too ragged, their heart rates too high. They couldn't steady their rifles enough to make clean shots. Morrison managed 3 hits out of 5. Patterson got 2. Kim failed completely, his hands shaking too badly to hold steady. Then Webb ran the course. He was fast, efficient, and when he dropped prone, his breathing controlled almost immediately. He waited a full 45 seconds before taking his first shot, using the time to let his physiology settle. 4 out of 5, Davis called. Good discipline, Webb. Sarah's turn came. She ran the 400 meters at a pace that looked desperate, arms pumping, breath coming in gasps. She threw herself down at the firing line and immediately grabbed her rifle, looking panicked and rushed. Then she fired her first shot at the 15-second mark, while her breathing still sounded labored. Hit. She fired 4 more times in rapid succession, each shot going out while she still appeared to be fighting for breath. 5 for 5. Davis walked over with a medical monitor. Let me see your vitals. Sarah held out her wrist for the pulse oximeter. The device beeped, displaying her stats. Heart rate, 48. Respiratory rate, 12. That's not possible, Webb said, reading over Davis's shoulder. She just ran 400 meters. Her heart rate should be over 100. Davis checked the device, then checked Sarah's pulse manually. The machine's not wrong. Then she is. Webb's voice was rising. Nobody recovers that fast. It's not physiologically possible unless... He stopped, his face going pale. Unless you've been trained to control your autonomic responses. Unless you've done this so many times that your body knows how to shut down the stress reaction. Sarah met his eyes without speaking. Let him wonder. Let him guess. The next evolution was night shooting, but sunset was still 2 hours away. Davis dismissed them for downtime, warning them to stay hydrated and rest up. Most candidates headed for the barracks, but Sarah stayed on the range, using the break to clean her rifle. She'd field-stripped the weapon and was working on the bolt when a shadow fell across her cleaning mat. Patterson stood there, his expression uncertain. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was different from earlier. No mockery, no cruelty, just genuine curiosity. Sarah looked up, but didn't stop working. "Sure." "That scar on your arm. Webb thinks it's from combat. Rodriguez thinks it's from a car accident. But I saw how you reacted when Webb grabbed it earlier. That wasn't pain. That was..." He searched for the word. "Memory. Like it took you somewhere else for a second." Sarah's hands stilled on the rifle bolt. "Why does it matter?" "Because I'm trying to figure out if you're for real or if this is all some kind of game." He sat down, uninvited. "I had a little sister. She wanted to be a Marine. Everyone told her she was too small, too weak, not cut out for it. She believed them. Gave up on her dream before she even tried." "That's unfortunate." "Yeah. And then I watch you take everything we've thrown at you today, and I mean everything, and you just handle it. Like it's nothing. Like you've dealt with way worse." He paused. "So, I'm asking, is this real? Or are you some kind of plant here to test us or prove a point?" Sarah considered lying. The mission required it. But something in Patterson's voice, the genuine pain when he mentioned his sister, made her choose a different truth. "I'm real," she said, "and I have dealt with worse. But that's all I can tell you." Patterson nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He stood to leave, then paused. Webb's planning something for tonight, during the night shoot. I don't know what exactly, but I heard him and Kim talking. He's going to try to get you kicked out, and he doesn't care how. Why are you telling me this? Because my sister deserved a fair shot, and she didn't get one. Maybe I can't fix that, but I can give you a heads up. He walked away before Sarah could respond. She finished cleaning her rifle, her mind working through possibilities. Webb was escalating, getting desperate. Desperate men made mistakes, but they also took risks. Big risks. Her phone buzzed, another message from Martinez. Intel suggests potential security incident tonight. Recommend you abort and extract. Sarah typed back. Mission incomplete. Staying. The response came immediately. Your call. QRF on standby if needed. She pocketed the phone and reassembled her rifle. The sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, painting the range in shades of gold and amber. In 2 hours, it would be dark, and in the dark, anything could happen. The other candidates started filtering back to the range as sunset approached. Night vision equipment was distributed, Gen 3 PVS-14 binoculars for most candidates. Sarah received a Gen 1 device that looked like it had been pulled from a museum. The image was grainy, the depth perception non-existent. Think you can shoot what you can't see? Kim asked, his voice mocking again now that they were back in a group setting. Sarah just checked her equipment without responding. She noted that her night vision mount was loose, the battery compartment cracked. More sabotage, more obstacles. She made her adjustments and waited. Davis gathered them as full darkness fell. Night shooting is where most candidates fail. Your eyes lie to you. Your depth perception disappears. Your natural point of aim shifts. Targets at 300 yards, 5 shots. You'll engage using night vision and infrared lasers. The first candidate up was Morrison. He struggled immediately, his shots going wide as he fought with the unfamiliar equipment. 1 hit out of 5. Webb went next. He'd clearly practiced this, his laser control smooth and professional. 4 out of 5. Then Sarah's turn came. She moved to the line, mounted her terrible night vision, and acquired the first target. The green image was so grainy she could barely distinguish the silhouette from the background. She aimed using the rifle's iron sights instead, using the night vision peripherally for target location only. Her first shot hit. So did her second. By the third, she'd completely adapted to the terrible equipment, her brain compensating for the poor image quality automatically. 5 for 5. God damn it! Webb's voice exploded in the darkness. That's enough! I'm calling bullshit on all of this! Davis turned. Sergeant Webb, control yourself. Control myself? Sir, she just shot 5 for 5 with equipment that shouldn't even function. She's been shooting perfect scores all day with damaged gear under harassment, and we're supposed to believe she's just some random candidate? Webb was nearly shouting now. I want to know who she really is. I want to see her orders. What you want, Sergeant, is irrelevant. Davis's voice cracked like a whip. Thompson is a qualified candidate who has met every standard we've put in front of her. Your personal feelings don't change that. My personal feelings? This isn't personal, it's professional. She's either the best natural shooter I've ever seen, or she's had training that she's lying about. Either way, we deserve to know the truth. Sarah stood silent during the exchange, her face neutral. But inside, she was making calculations. Webb was close to the edge, close to doing something that would force her to break cover. She needed to de-escalate without appearing weak. I'll take a polygraph, she said quietly. If that would settle this. The range went silent. Even Webb stopped mid-breath. Davis stared at her. That's not necessary, candidate.
I think it is, sir. Sergeant Webb has valid concerns. If my answers can be verified, maybe we can move past this and focus on training.
She looked directly at Webb. What do you say, Sergeant? Will you accept the results of a polygraph? Webb's face worked through several emotions before settling on suspicion. Fine, but I want to submit the questions. Agreed, as long as Chief Davis approves them first. Davis looked between them, clearly trying to determine who was playing whom. Tomorrow morning, before training, I'll arrange it with headquarters. He raised his voice. For now, we're done for the day. Dismissed. As the group dispersed, Sarah felt a hand on her elbow. Patterson, again. That was either really smart or really stupid, he said quietly. You know polygraphs can be beaten, right? With the right training? Sarah allowed herself the smallest smile. I'm counting on Webb thinking the same thing. Let him spend all night worrying about what questions to ask. Patterson studied her face in the darkness. You really aren't afraid of him, are you? Should I be? Most people are. He's got a mean streak and the skills to back it up. Sarah thought about Helmand Province, about Taliban fighters, about actual combat where the people shooting at you weren't testing you. They were trying to kill you. I've met mean before, she said. Webb's just angry. She walked back to her temporary quarters, aware of eyes tracking her movement. Multiple someones watching from different positions. Webb's squad, probably, making sure she didn't do anything suspicious. Inside, she checked her phone. A message from Martinez. Polygraph is a bold move. You sure about this? Sarah typed, He's focused on the wrong questions. Let him dig. What do you mean? He's trying to figure out who I am. He should be asking why I'm here. She didn't wait for a response. Instead, she pulled out a small notebook and began writing, documenting everything from today. Every act of harassment, every instance of sabotage, every word spoken in anger or cruelty. The evidence was mounting, but she needed more. She needed to catch them doing something that couldn't be explained away. Tomorrow's polygraph would help with that. Because while Webb would be asking about her background and training, he'd be revealing his own obsession, his own inability to accept a woman succeeding in his domain. And that obsession would be his downfall. Sarah lay back on her rack, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, Webb was planning his next move. And somewhere even further out, real threats existed. The kind that made training range harassment look like playground bullying. She closed her eyes and let herself remember, just for a moment, the weight of a real rifle, the smell of cordite and copper, the way time slowed when you squeezed a trigger with someone's life hanging in the balance. Then she pushed the memories away and focused on sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and she'd pass every single one, no matter what they threw at her. Because that was the mission. And Sarah Chen never failed a mission. The polygraph examiner arrived at 0530, a civilian contractor named Dr. Helen Moss, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. She set up her equipment in a small admin building while Sarah sat outside, watching the sunrise paint the sky purple and gold. Webb paced nearby, clutching a sheet of paper covered in questions he'd spent all night writing. Nervous? He asked, his voice dripping with anticipation. Should I be? Most liars are. Sarah stood and stretched, her movements casual. Then I guess we'll find out what I am. Dr. Moss called her in. The room was sterile, anonymous, with nothing but a table, 2 chairs, and the polygraph machine. Sarah sat and let Moss attach the sensors, chest bands for respiration, blood pressure cuff on her arm, galvanometers on her fingers.
Have you ever been polygraphed before? Moss asked.
No, ma'am. Moss glanced at the readout. No reaction. True statement. She made a note. Davis and Webb entered, Davis taking a position against the wall while Webb handed his questions to Moss. She read through them, her eyebrows rising. These are extensive, Moss said. I want to be thorough, Webb replied. Moss shrugged and began. State your full name. Sarah Thompson. The machine drew its lines across the moving paper. Moss watched them, then made a mark. Is that your legal name? Sarah's heart rate didn't change. It's the name on my identification. Technically true. The cover identity had been legally established. Webb leaned forward, sensing evasion, but Moss nodded and continued. Have you received professional military sniper training? I've received training from someone with military experience. Again, technically true. Her father had been a Marine before his death. Webb's jaw clenched, but Moss was still watching the readout with professional detachment. Are you currently serving in any branch of the United States military? Not in an active combat role, no. Webb started to interrupt, but Davis held up a hand. Moss continued down the list of questions, and Sarah answered each one with careful precision, threading the needle between truth and deception. The polygraph measured physiological responses, but it couldn't account for someone who'd been trained to control those responses. After 30 minutes, Moss removed the sensors. She's showing no significant deception indicators on the questions asked. That's impossible, Webb slammed his hand on the table. She's lying about something, I know it. The machine says otherwise, Sergeant. Moss began packing up her equipment. Your candidate is either telling the truth, or she's one of the best trained liars I've ever tested. Either way, my report will state no deception detected.
Webb's face went purple. He turned to Davis.
Sir, you can't seriously be buying this. What I buy or don't buy is irrelevant, Sergeant. The test came back clean. Unless you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, we move on. Davis looked at Sarah. You're cleared to continue training. Dismissed. Sarah stood and walked out, feeling Webb's eyes burning into her back. She'd won this round, but the victory felt hollow. She was here to document abuse, not to antagonize. But Webb was forcing her hand at every turn. The morning's training was urban environment shooting, engaging targets from inside buildings, through windows, around corners. The scenario was designed to simulate combat conditions, complete with stress fire, loud noises, and civilian pop-up targets mixed with hostile ones. Sarah watched Morrison go first. He took his time, clearing each room methodically, but his accuracy suffered. 3 hostile targets engaged, 1 civilian accidentally hit. Automatic failure. Webb went next, moving with aggressive confidence. He rushed through the course, firing rapidly at anything that moved. 5 hostile targets down, 0 civilians hit. But his time was slow. Acceptable performance. Then Sarah's turn. She picked up the training rifle and moved to the start point. The course began with a simulated explosion, a flashbang that detonated without warning. Most candidates flinched or froze. Sarah's body reacted before her mind registered the sound, dropping into a combat crouch with the rifle already coming up. For just a fraction of a second, she wasn't on a training range in Virginia. She was in a compound in Helmand, and the explosion was real, and people were dying. Then training reasserted itself, and she moved forward, clearing the first room. Target up, hostile with AK-47. She fired twice, center mass. Moving to the next room, she registered voices behind her. Did you see that drop? Kim's voice. That wasn't training. That was reflex. Sarah ignored them and continued. The course threw everything at her. targets appearing from unexpected angles, civilian pop-ups requiring split-second discrimination, stress fire from concealed speakers. She moved through it like water flowing downhill, each movement economical, each shot deliberate. When she finished, Davis checked his stopwatch and the target count. 7 hostile targets engaged, all neutralized. 0 civilian casualties. Time, 43 seconds. That's faster than the course record, Rodriguez said quietly. Webb stepped forward. I want to see the targets. They walked the course together. Sarah had put 2 rounds in each hostile target, all within a 3-inch group. The precision was inhuman, especially at the speed she'd moved. You've run this exact course before, Webb stated. There's no other explanation. I've never been to this facility before yesterday, Sergeant. Then you've run something identical. This level of performance requires familiarity. Sarah met his eyes. Or it requires actually being good at the job. The challenge hung in the air between them. Davis cleared his throat. All candidates, 30-minute break. Hydrate and prepare for the advanced stress course. As the group dispersed, Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked it discreetly. Martinez. Situation developing. Armed individuals spotted near base perimeter. May be unrelated. Stay alert. Sarah's blood went cold. She scanned the tree line automatically, looking for anything out of place. Nothing visible, but that didn't mean nothing was there. She approached Davis. Sir, has there been any unusual activity reported near the base today? Davis frowned. Why do you ask? Just a feeling, sir. The way the birds went quiet about 10 minutes ago. And I haven't heard any aircraft in the last half hour, which is unusual for this time of day. Davis's expression shifted. He pulled out his radio. Command, this is Range 7. Request status update on base security posture. The radio crackled. Range 7, stand by. The wait stretched. Sarah watched Davis's face grow more concerned with each passing second. Finally, the radio came back to life. All ranges, this is command. We have a potential security situation. All training personnel shelter in place until further notice. This is not a drill. The candidates looked at each other in confusion. Webb started to speak, but his words were cut off by the sharp crack of gunfire from the northeast. Not training fire. The distinctive report of AK pattern rifles. Everyone inside the admin building, now, Davis ordered, his voice shifting from instructor to combat veteran in a heartbeat. The group moved, but Sarah found herself analyzing the gunfire instead. 3 shooters, maybe 4, firing from elevated positions. Coordinated. Professional. More gunfire, closer now. Someone screamed from the direction of the main range complex. The sound of return fire, M4 carbines, the security force engaging. Sarah's training overrode everything else. She moved to Davis. Sir, we need to establish a perimeter. These candidates are sitting ducks in that building. Thompson, get inside with the others. Sir, with respect, that building has 3 points of entry and window exposure on all sides. If they reach us, we're trapped. She pointed to a maintenance shed. That structure has concrete walls, 1 entrance, commanding view of the approaches. Davis stared at her. How do you know? Another burst of gunfire interrupted him, followed by an explosion that shook the ground. Fine. Everyone to the maintenance shed. Double time. They ran. Sarah automatically took rear guard, her eyes scanning for threats. She saw Webb watching her, confusion and suspicion warring on his face. No time to worry about that now. Inside the shed, Sarah immediately began organizing. Kim, Rodriguez, cover that window. Morrison, watch the door. Everyone else, get down and stay down. Who put you in charge? Webb demanded. Do you have a better idea, Sergeant? The gunfire was getting closer. Through the window, Sarah could see smoke rising from one of the range buildings. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned, coordinated, and the attackers knew exactly where they were going. Davis's radio crackled again. "All personnel, we have multiple casualties at the main complex. Quick reaction force is inbound. ETA 12 minutes. Hold your positions." 12 minutes. An eternity in combat.
Sir,
Sarah said quietly.
do we have any weapons?
Davis shook his head. "Training weapons only. No ammunition authorized for this facility." Sarah's mind raced. No weapons, no ammunition, no way to defend against armed attackers. She moved to the window and looked out. The nearest armory was 200 meters away across open ground. "There's an emergency weapons cache," Patterson said suddenly. "Building 14. My buddy works supply. He told me about it."
How far?
Sarah asked.
300 meters, northwest.
Sarah calculated. 300 meters of open ground, under fire, to reach weapons that might help them survive. Or stay here and hope the attackers passed them by. The decision was made for her when a burst of gunfire shattered the window above Kim's head. The rounds punched through the thin walls, sending everyone diving for cover. "They know we're here!" Rodriguez yelled. Sarah looked at Davis.
Sir, I need permission to move to that cache.
"Absolutely not. We stay together."
If we stay together, we die together. I can make it.
"Thompson, that's suicide." Another burst of fire, closer. Someone was methodically working their way toward their position.
It's a chance, Sarah said.
"Which is more than we'll have in about 2 minutes." Webb grabbed her arm. "Who the hell are you? Because you're not some random candidate. You're talking like a goddamn operator." Sarah looked him in the eye. "Right now, does it matter? I can help or I can hide. Your choice, Sergeant." The sound of footsteps outside, moving carefully. Professional movement. Sarah recognized the pattern. They were doing a tactical clear, building by building. Davis made his decision. "Go, fast and quiet. We'll try to draw their attention." Sarah was already moving. She slipped out the back window, hitting the ground in a roll that brought her up in a dead sprint. Behind her, Davis started shouting orders loudly enough to be heard, creating noise to cover her movement. The 300 meters stretched like 3 miles. Sarah ran in a combat crouch, using every scrap of cover. A dumpster, a drainage ditch, a burned-out vehicle from some previous training exercise. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But she didn't slow. Halfway there, she heard shouting in a language she recognized. Arabic. The attackers were coordinating, moving in a pattern designed to trap anyone who ran. Sarah adjusted her route, angling away from their voices. She vaulted a fence and nearly ran into a gunman coming around a corner. He was young, maybe 20, with wild eyes and an AK-47 pointed at the ground. His eyes widened when he saw her. He started to bring the rifle up. Sarah's hand shot out, grabbing the barrel and pushing it aside. Her other hand struck his throat, precise and brutal. He went down choking, and Sarah caught the rifle before it hit the ground. She checked the magazine. 23 rounds. Not enough for a prolonged fight, but it was something. 2 more attackers appeared, drawn by the noise. Sarah dropped prone and fired 3-round bursts. Both men went down. She took their magazines, 47 rounds now, and kept moving. Building 14 was ahead, the door hanging open. Sarah approached carefully, queering the corners. Inside, she found the emergency cache exactly where Patterson said it would be. 4 M4 carbines, 12 magazines, a medical kit, and 2 radios. She loaded herself down with everything she could carry and keyed one of the radios.
Command, this is Candidate Thompson at Building 14. I have weapons and am moving to reinforce personnel at the maintenance shed. How copy?
Static. Then a voice. "Thompson, this is Colonel Martinez. What's your tactical situation?"
Sarah's breath caught. Martinez wasn't supposed to be here. Unless... Sir, I have multiple armed hostiles, professional training, moving in coordinated fire teams. Current count is at least 8, possibly more.
Can you hold position?
Negative, sir. I have candidates exposed at the maintenance shed. They need support, now.
A pause. Thompson, be advised. QRF is 6 minutes out. Your call on how to proceed. 6 minutes. Sarah looked at the weapons in her hands, then back toward where her fellow candidates were pinned down. Webb, who hated her, Rodriguez and Kim, who'd mocked her, Patterson, who'd tried to warn her, Morrison, who'd never done anything but compete fairly, and Davis, who'd given her the chance to run.
Moving to support,
she said into the radio.
Thompson out.
She took a breath, checked her rifle, and stepped back into hell. The return trip was different. Sarah moved like she'd been trained to move, flowing from cover to cover, rifle up and ready. She spotted 2 more attackers and dropped them both before they knew she was there. The element of surprise was her only advantage, and she used it ruthlessly. She reached the shed from an unexpected angle and tapped the wall in a specific pattern. 3 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. The door cracked open, and Patterson's face appeared, pale and shocked.
Jesus Christ, you made it.
Sarah pushed inside and distributed the weapons. M-Force, loaded and ready. Kim, Rodriguez, you 2 take the east windows. Webb, Patterson, west side. Morrison, you're with me on the door. Webb took the rifle, but his eyes never left her face. That pattern you knocked, that's Marine Raider protocol. Where did you learn it?
Later, Sergeant. Right now, we have incoming.
And they did. 4 attackers moving in a tactical wedge toward the shed. Sarah tracked them through the window, her finger on the trigger, waiting for them to enter effective range.
Hold fire until I engage,
she said quietly.
Controlled bursts. Aim center mass. Fire on my mark.
The attackers moved closer. Closer. Sarah's breathing slowed, her heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to the space between her front sight post and the lead attacker's chest.
Mark.
5 rifles fired as one. The attackers went down in a tangle of limbs and weapons. Sarah was already displacing, moving to a new window to cover different angles.
Reload, she called. Check your corners. They'll try to flank.
And they did. 2 more attackers came from the north, but Kim saw them and fired first. One went down, the other ducked behind a vehicle.
Rodriguez, suppressive fire on that truck, Sarah ordered. Morrison, shift left, watch for his partner.
They moved like a unit, responding to her commands without question. Even Webb, his face a mask of concentration, followed her orders. The radio crackled. All personnel, QRF is on site. Cease fire! Cease fire! But Sarah saw movement that didn't match friendly forces. She tracked a figure moving through the smoke, heading toward the admin building where wounded personnel were sheltering.
Contact, 2 o'clock, moving toward admin.
She fired, and the figure dropped. Then helicopter rotors, the heavy thump of military birds inbound. Marines poured out, spreading in a tactical formation that swept through the area with professional precision. Within 3 minutes, it was over. 9 attackers dead, 3 wounded and captured. On the friendly side, 4 casualties from the initial assault, all wounded but stable. Sarah safed her weapon and set it down. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion behind. Webb approached slowly. I want the truth. Right now. No more games. Sarah looked at him, then at Davis, who nodded.
Captain Sarah Chen,
she said quietly.
Marine Raiders. 43 confirmed kills over 3 deployments. I was sent here undercover to investigate reports of systematic harassment of female candidates.
The shed went silent. Webb's face cycled through shock, anger, betrayal, and finally something that might have been shame. You've been playing us this whole time. I was doing my job, Sergeant. Documenting how female candidates are treated, how they're sabotaged, mocked, driven out. She gestured around. But this wasn't part of the plan. This was real. Rodriguez stepped forward. Everything you took from us, the harassment, the sabotage, you could have stopped us any time. Yes. Why didn't you? Because I needed to see how far it would go, how bad it really was. Sarah's voice hardened. And now I know. Colonel Martinez entered the shed, his uniform dusty from the helicopter ride. Captain Chen, report. Sarah snapped to attention. Sir, 9 hostile KIA, 3 captured, 4 friendly wounded. Candidates performed adequately under fire once properly armed and directed. Martinez looked at the candidates, then back at Sarah. These are the men who've been hazing you? Yes, sir. And you still chose to come back for them, to arm them, to lead them. They're Marines, sir. Flawed, but still Marines. Webb's voice was quiet. We don't deserve that. Sarah turned to face him. No, you don't. But deserve has nothing to do with it. When people are dying, you save who you can, regardless of whether they've earned it. The weight of her words settled over the group. Patterson looked at the floor. Kim wouldn't meet her eyes. Rodriguez kept opening and closing his mouth like he wanted to speak but couldn't find words. Martinez nodded. Candidate Chen's cover is blown. As of now, she's reinstated to her proper rank and position. He looked at Webb's squad. You men will be debriefed separately. Your actions during this incident will be noted in your records. But make no mistake, the investigation into training practices at this facility will continue. He gestured for Sarah to follow him outside. As they walked away from the shed, Sarah heard Webb's voice. We really screwed up, didn't we? And Patterson's response. Yeah, we did. Outside, Martinez kept his voice low. The attackers were a terrorist cell planning to hit the ammunition depot. Intel failure on our part. They weren't supposed to know about the training schedules. They had inside information, Sarah said. They knew exactly where to hit, when to hit. I know. We're investigating. He paused. Your cover mission is over, but your work here isn't. Those men in there just saw what you can do, what you are. That's going to spread through the entire school. And change the culture faster than any investigation, Sarah finished. Exactly. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish this qualification course, as yourself this time, and you're going to teach these men what a real sniper looks like. Sarah thought about Webb's face when he realized who she was. The shame, the shock, the beginning of understanding. Yes, sir, she said. I can do that. Because sometimes the best way to change a system wasn't to tear it down from outside. It was to stand in the middle of it and prove that everything they thought they knew was wrong. The debriefing room smelled like stale coffee and regret. Sarah sat at one end of the table, her captain's bars freshly pinned to her collar. Webb and his squad sat opposite her, with Davis and Martinez flanking the sides. None of them would meet her eyes, except Webb, who stared at her with an intensity that bordered on fury. Martinez opened a folder. Before we discuss the attack, we need to address what happened before it. Captain Chen was operating under deep cover for 8 weeks, documenting systematic abuse of female candidates at this facility. Her findings are extensive. He slid a tablet across the table. Webb picked it up, his face going pale as he scrolled through pages of documented incidents. Photographs,
audio recordings, time-stamped logs of every act of sabotage, every cruel comment, every deliberate attempt to drive women out of the program. "This can't all be," Webb's voice cracked. "We didn't... it wasn't..."
Wasn't what, Sergeant? Sarah's voice was quiet, but sharp. Wasn't intentional? Wasn't that bad? Wasn't enough to destroy careers and dreams? Rodriguez was reading over Webb's shoulder, his face ashen. Oh God. The equipment sabotage. The damaged rifle. That was all documented? Every single incident, Martinez confirmed. Captain Chen maintained meticulous records even while enduring treatment that would have broken most operators. Kim's hands were shaking. We could have gotten her killed. If she hadn't been as good as she is, if she'd been an actual new candidate, then she'd be another statistic, Davis cut in, his voice hard. Another woman who couldn't hack it in the program. Another failure blamed on the individual rather than the system. He looked at each of them in turn. I've been teaching snipers for 15 years. You know how many women have made it through in that time? 0. And now I know why. Webb set down the tablet. What happens to us? Martinez leaned back. That depends. On several factors. Your conduct during the attack weighed in your favor. When Captain Chen armed you and took command, you followed orders without hesitation. You functioned as a unit. That counts for something. But? Patterson's voice was barely a whisper. But you systematically tortured a fellow Marine for 2 days straight. You sabotaged equipment. You created a hostile environment designed to force psychological and professional failure. Martinez's voice was ice. Courts-martial have been convened for less. The room went silent. Sarah watched their faces, seeing genuine fear now. Good. They should be afraid. They should understand what their actions had cost. Webb spoke first. Captain Chen. He forced himself to look at her. I need to understand something. Why didn't you break cover during the attack? You could have revealed yourself immediately, taken command without risking exposure. Because there were wounded personnel in the admin building, Sarah said. Every second counted. Explaining who I was would have wasted time arguing about chain of command. You trusted us to follow you, even though we'd spent 2 days trying to break you. I trusted you to be Marines when it mattered. I was half right. Webb flinched. What does that mean? Sarah leaned forward. You followed orders under fire because training took over. But the moment the shooting stopped, you went right back to questioning my authority. Even now, you're looking for angles, for ways to minimize what you did. That's not... Webb stopped. His shoulders sagged. You're right. Even after everything, my first instinct was to find an excuse. Martinez pulled out another document. Here's what's going to happen. Sergeant Webb, you're reduced in rank to private. You'll serve 6 months remedial training under my direct supervision. If you complete it successfully, you'll have a chance to earn back your position. Webb nodded, accepting the judgment without argument. Kim and Rodriguez, you're being reassigned to different units. Your records will note disciplinary action for conduct unbecoming. You'll spend the next year proving you've learned something from this. Both men nodded, looking relieved it wasn't worse. Patterson. Martinez's voice softened slightly. You attempted to warn Captain Chen about planned harassment. That shows moral courage. You're being retained with a formal reprimand. Use this chance wisely. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Martinez turned to Morrison, who'd been silent throughout. You weren't part of Webb's squad, but you participated in the general culture of exclusion. You're on probation. Prove you can be better. Finally, Martinez looked at Sarah. Captain Chen,
You're being assigned as the new Assistant Director of Training for this facility.
Your job is to rebuild this program from the ground up. Make it what it should have been all along. Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders.
Sir, with respect, these men just watched me deceive them for 2 days. They're not going to trust me as an instructor.
Then you'll have to earn that trust. Martinez stood. Just like they'll have to earn yours. Dismissed. The group filed out, but Webb lingered. When they were alone, he approached Sarah's position. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to be honest. Go ahead. During the qualification yesterday, the 4-inch group at 1,000 yards with sabotaged equipment, was that really the best you could do, or were you holding back even then? Sarah considered lying, considered protecting his ego, then decided he'd earned the truth. I was aiming for a 6-inch group. Didn't want to be too obvious. Webb absorbed this like a physical blow. So you could have shot even better. On a good day, with proper equipment, I can put 10 rounds through a 2-inch circle at that distance. Jesus Christ. Webb sat down heavily. And we were mocking you, calling you names, treating you like you were garbage. Yes. How? His voice was raw. How did you not just snap? How did you take all of that without fighting back? Sarah thought about Helmand Province, about Taliban prisoners who'd spit in her face, called her a whore, promised to kill her family, about maintaining composure while interrogating men who'd murdered children. Because I've had worse, she said simply. And because the mission mattered more than my ego. Webb looked at his hands. I have a daughter. She's 7. Wants to be a soldier like her dad. His voice cracked. If she grows up and joins the Marines, and some sergeant treats her the way I treated you. He couldn't finish. Then you make sure that sergeant doesn't exist, Sarah said. You change the culture now so that by the time she's old enough to serve, this kind of thing is history. How do I do that? You start by being honest about what you did and why you did it. No excuses, no justification, just truth. Webb nodded slowly. I was threatened by you. From the moment you arrived, something about you made me feel inadequate, small. So I tried to make you smaller to compensate. Why? Because if a 5'3" woman could be a better sniper than me, what did that say about my identity as a Marine, as a man? He laughed bitterly. Sounds stupid when I say it out loud. It sounds human, Sarah said. Wrong, but human. The question is what you do with that understanding. The door opened and Davis entered. Captain Chen, we need to discuss the training restructure. Webb, you're dismissed. Webb stood, then paused. Captain, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I understand what I did was wrong. Sarah nodded. Apology noted, Private Webb. Now go think about how you're going to be better. After he left, Davis pulled up a chair. That was generous of you, accepting his apology. I didn't accept it. I noted it. There's a difference. Davis smiled slightly. You're going to be a hard instructor, aren't you? I'm going to be a fair one, which means holding people accountable. Sarah pulled out her own tablet. I've been documenting issues with this program for 8 weeks. Want to hear what needs to change? Hit me. Sarah opened her notes. First, equipment allocation. Currently, female candidates are systematically given inferior gear. That ends immediately. Everyone gets the same quality equipment, randomly assigned. Agreed. Next? Evaluation criteria. I watched Morrison put 3 rounds through a 5-inch group at 500 yards and get praised. I put 8 through a quarter and got questioned. We need objective, measurable standards that apply equally. Davis nodded. I'll work with you on developing those. What else? Instructor training. Half the staff here enables harassment through silence. They see what's happening and do nothing. That makes them complicit. You want to retrain the entire instructor cadre? I want to replace the ones who can't or won't change. The rest get retrained. Sarah's voice hardened. This program is supposed to produce snipers who can work in small teams under extreme stress. How are we supposed to trust them in combat if they can't trust each other in training? Davis was quiet for a moment. You know this is going to make you unpopular, with students and instructors both. I'm not here to win a popularity contest, Chief. I'm here to fix a broken system. Good, because I'm recommending you for full directorship once you prove you can handle the role. He stood. Tomorrow you start teaching. First class is Webb's remedial group, 8 candidates who've been recycled for various failures. They're going to test you. Let them. The next morning, Sarah stood in front of 8 candidates who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Webb was there, his new private rank feeling like a brand. The others were a mix of recycled students and disciplinary cases. My name is Captain Sarah Chen, she began. Some of you know me as the candidate you spent 2 days harassing. Others know me from the attack response. All of you are here because you failed at something important. A hand went up. Sarah nodded. Ma'am, is it true you shot perfect scores with damaged equipment while we were sabotaging you? It's true. Murmurs rippled through the group. Another hand. Why didn't you report us immediately? Why let it continue? Because I needed to document the full scope of the problem. One incident could be dismissed as an isolated case. 47 incidents over 2 days shows a pattern. She pulled up images on the projector. This is what systematic harassment looks like. The images showed damaged equipment, time-stamped messages, photographs of Sarah covered in mud while others remained clean. The group shifted uncomfortably. Webb raised his hand. Captain, permission to speak freely? Granted. We were wrong, all of us. We created an environment where cruelty was rewarded and competence was punished. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say we want to learn how to be better. But we don't know where to start. Sarah studied him. The question seemed genuine. You start by understanding why you did what you did. Private Webb, why did you target me specifically? Webb stood. Because you threatened my sense of identity. I'd built my self-worth on being the best shooter in the program. When you arrived and shot better than me, I couldn't handle it. And instead of using it as motivation to improve, you tried to tear me down. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else want to confess their motivation? Sarah looked around the room. Slowly, hands started to rise. I went along because I wanted to fit in, one candidate admitted. I thought hazing was just part of the culture, another said. I was mad that a woman might succeed where I'd failed, a third confessed. Sarah let them talk, let them expose their reasoning. Some of it was ugly. All of it was honest. Here's what you need to understand, she said when they finished. Being a sniper isn't about being the toughest or the loudest or the most aggressive. It's about discipline, patience, and the ability to function as part of a team under conditions that would break most people. She pulled up combat footage. This is from Helmand Province, 2018. My team was providing overwatch for a patrol that walked into an ambush. I spent 7 hours in that position, taking shots when I had them, calling adjustments when I didn't. Temperature was 118 degrees. I couldn't move enough to drink water without compromising my position. My spotter got hit by return fire, and I had to keep working while giving him first aid. The footage showed the outcome. A successful extraction, casualties minimized, enemy neutralized.
That's what this job actually is. It's not about ego or proving your masculinity. It's about getting the job done regardless of the cost to yourself. Can any of you honestly say you're ready for that? The room was silent. I didn't think so. Which is why we're starting from zero. For the next 6 months, you're going to learn what it really means to be a sniper. Not the Hollywood version, not the ego-driven version. The real thing. A candidate in the back raised his hand.
Captain, how do we know you won't just make this about punishing us for what happened? Because punishment would be easy. Transformation is hard. Sarah pulled up a training schedule.
This program will be the most difficult thing you've ever done. Not because I'm trying to break you, but because I'm trying to build you into something better than you are. She clicked to the next slide. First evolution, team building. You're going to learn to trust each other. Then we'll move to basic marksmanship, built on proper fundamentals instead of bad habits. Then stress shooting. Then tactical applications. By the end, you'll either be qualified snipers, or you'll know definitively that this isn't your calling. Webb raised his hand again.
Captain, I have to ask, after everything we did to you, why are you willing to teach us? Why not just recommend we all be drummed out?
Sarah met his eyes.
Because during that attack, when I handed you a rifle and told you to fight, you didn't question me. You didn't argue. You followed orders and performed your duty. That tells me there's something worth saving in each of you. Whether you choose to be saved is up to you. The weight of her words settled over the group. Sarah could see some of them sitting straighter, others looking down in shame. Good. Both reactions were appropriate. Dismissed for today. Tomorrow at 0500 we start for real. Don't be late. As the group filed out, Webb approached her again. Captain, I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but would you teach me that 773 breathing protocol? The one you used during the stress shooting? Sarah considered refusing, considered making him work for it. Then she thought about his daughter, about the kind of Marine he could become if he truly changed. Tomorrow, after regular training, be prepared to work. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. After he left, Davis appeared. You handled that well. Firm but fair. They needed to hear the truth. Whether they act on it is their choice. What if they don't? What if they fall back into old patterns? Sarah thought about the 7 women who'd been driven out of the program before her, about all the future candidates who deserved better. Then they fail, and we find people who won't. That evening, Sarah sat in her temporary office, reviewing files on upcoming candidates. 3 women were scheduled to start in the next class. Seeing their names, she felt the weight of responsibility deepen. These women would be entering a program that had chewed up and spit out every female candidate who'd tried. They'd be walking into an environment that had been actively hostile until 72 hours ago. Her phone rang. Martinez. Captain, how was day 1? Productive, sir. The recycled group is responsive. Webb especially seems genuinely committed to change. Good, because I'm accelerating the timeline. Those 3 female candidates I mentioned, they're starting Monday. Sarah's blood went cold. Sir, that's 4 days from now. We haven't finished implementing the new protocols. I know, but word is spreading about what happened here, about you. These women specifically requested assignment to your program. They want to be part of the change. They want to be guinea pigs, you mean? They want to prove it can be done, just like you did. Martinez paused. Can you protect them? Sarah thought about her 2 days as a candidate, about the systematic cruelty, the sabotage, the constant pressure designed to break spirits and destroy confidence. I can give them a fair chance, sir, which is more than anyone gave the others. Then that'll have to be enough. Good luck, Captain.
After he hung up, Sarah pulled up the files on the three women.
Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, no relation to the Rodriguez from Webb's squad, a former collegiate rifle champion. Sergeant First Class Jennifer Morrison, again no relation, a combat veteran with 2 deployments. And Private First Class Lisa Patterson. Yes, relation. She was Brad Patterson's sister. Sarah's eyes lingered on that last name. Patterson had mentioned his sister, the one who'd given up on her dream. Apparently, she'd found it again. The door opened without knocking. Webb stood there, still in his training uniform. "Private, you're supposed to knock." "I know, ma'am, but I just found out about the new candidates starting Monday. Patterson's sister is one of them." "I'm aware." "Ma'am, Brad is terrified. He's scared we're going to do to his sister what we did to you." Sarah leaned back. "Are you?" "No. God, no. But he doesn't trust that. And honestly, after what we did, why should he?" "He shouldn't. Trust is earned, Private." You want his trust? You want those women to succeed? Then you make sure every candidate in that class knows that harassment will not be tolerated. You set the example. Webb nodded slowly. "I can do that. I will do that." "Good, because I'm assigning you as their primary assistant instructor for basic marksmanship." Webb's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I don't think... I'm the last person who should..." "You're exactly the right person. You're a cautionary tale and the redemption story wrapped into one. Those women need to see that people can change, that the culture can shift. You're going to show them that." "What if I fail? What if I fall back into old habits?" Sarah's voice went cold. "Then I'll relieve you of duty so fast you'll think you imagined having it. But I don't think you will, because you have something to prove now. To yourself, to your daughter, to every woman who's going to come through this program." Webb straightened. "I won't let you down, Captain. Don't let them down. I'm not the one who matters here." After he left, Sarah returned to the files. 3 women. 3 chances to prove the system could work. 3 opportunities for everything to go right. Or catastrophically wrong. She thought about calling Martinez back, asking for more time. Then she remembered her own qualification, the way she'd been thrown into hell with no warning and expected to perform. These women deserved the same chance she'd had. The chance to prove themselves on merit, with fair equipment and honest evaluation. Sarah opened a new document and began writing the training plan for Monday's class. It would be different from anything that had come before. Harder in some ways, because she'd accept no excuses. Fairer in every way, because she'd accept no prejudice. Somewhere out there, 3 women were preparing for the challenge of their lives. They were checking their gear, studying their manuals, steeling themselves for what was coming. And in this office, Sarah was preparing to give them something no woman had received at this facility before. A real chance. Not a guaranteed outcome. Not special treatment. Just honest evaluation based on skill and determination. That's all anyone should need. That's all anyone had ever deserved. And starting Monday, that's exactly what they'd get. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering the barracks roof. Sarah stood at the window of her office, watching 3 figures emerge from separate vehicles. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told she couldn't do something. Sergeant Jennifer Morrison carried herself like a combat veteran, alert and cautious. Private Lisa Patterson looked terrified. Brad Patterson was waiting by the admin building, and when his sister saw him, she broke into a run. They embraced, and Sarah could see him whispering something urgent in her ear. Lisa pulled back, nodding, her face set with determination.
Webb appeared at Sarah's door. "They're here, ma'am."
"I can see that, Private. Are you ready?" "Honestly, I'm terrified. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they don't trust me? What if..."
Then you apologize and do better. Stop overthinking this.
Sarah turned from the window.
Remember, you're not their friend. You're their instructor. Professional, fair, demanding. Can you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Then let's go meet them.
The three women stood at attention in the briefing room when Sarah entered. She studied each of them, seeing past the nervous facades to what lay beneath. Rodriguez had the stance of an athlete, weight balanced, ready to move. Morrison's eyes tracked every exit, every person in the room. Patterson was trying so hard to look confident that it came across as rigid.
At ease, Sarah said. I'm Captain Chen. This is Private Webb, who'll be assisting with your basic marksmanship training.
She watched their reactions. Rodriguez's eyebrows went up at Webb's rank. Morrison's face remained neutral, but Patterson's eyes widened in recognition, and she shot her brother a look that could have melted steel. Before we begin, I need to address something directly, Sarah continued. Private Webb was part of a hazing culture that drove 7 women out of this program before you arrived. He's here now because he's working to become better than he was. Judge him on his current actions, not his past ones. Webb's face flushed, but he nodded. Ma'am, if I could add something? Sarah gestured for him to proceed. I treated Captain Chen like garbage for 2 days straight, Webb said, his voice steady despite the shame on his face. I sabotaged her equipment, mocked her appearance, did everything I could to make her quit. And she still handed me a rifle when our lives depended on it. That's the kind of Marine you're learning from. I'm here to try to learn how to be that kind of Marine too. The room was silent. Patterson spoke first. Why should we believe you've changed? You shouldn't. Not yet. But by the end of this training cycle, I hope to prove it through actions. Webb met her eyes. Your brother told me about you, about how you gave up on this dream once. I'm asking you not to let my past mistakes make you give up again. Morrison stepped forward. Captain, with respect, what guarantee do we have that this program will be different? That we won't be subjected to the same treatment? None, Sarah said bluntly. I can promise you fair equipment, honest evaluation, and immediate consequences for anyone who harasses you. But I can't promise that no one will try. What I can promise is that when they do, they'll face me. Rodriguez raised her hand. Captain, I heard what happened during the attack, that you shot 9 hostiles in combat conditions. Is that true? 12, actually. But who's counting? Sarah pulled up a training schedule. You're not here to hear war stories. You're here to become snipers. Let's talk about what that actually means. She walked them through the program. 6 months of intensive training, starting with fundamentals and building to advanced tactical applications. Physical fitness, marksmanship, fieldcraft, tactics. Every evolution designed to test their limits and expand their capabilities. First test is this afternoon, Sarah continued. Standard qualification at 100, 300, and 500 yards. You'll use randomly assigned equipment, same quality as every other candidate. Pass-fail. No curve, no excuses. And if we fail? Patterson asked quietly. Then you train harder and test again. Failure isn't permanent unless you let it be. Sarah closed her presentation. Questions? Morrison's hand went up. Captain, I need to know. Are you going easier on us because we're women? Absolutely not. I'm holding you to the exact same standard as everyone else, which means some of you might fail. But if you do, it'll be because you weren't good enough yet, not because someone rigged the game. The 3 women exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Rodriguez spoke. Then let's get to work. The afternoon qualification drew a crowd. Word had spread that the first women in the new program were testing, and candidates from other classes lined the observation area. Sarah saw money changing hands, heard the whispered bets. Most were betting against the women. Morrison went first. She approached the firing line with military precision, her movements economical and practiced. At 100 yards, she put 9 out of 10 in the black. At 300, she adjusted for wind and scored 8 out of 10. At 500, she took her time, breathing controlled, and finished with 7 out of 10. "Pass," Davis called. "Good shooting, Sergeant Morrison." The crowd murmured. 1 down, 2 to go. Rodriguez stepped up next, and Sarah immediately saw the difference in approach. Where Morrison was methodical, Rodriguez was fluid. She shot like someone who'd done this 10,000 times, the rifle an extension of her body. 10 for 10 at 100, 10 for 10 at 300. At 500 yards, with wind gusting unpredictably, she hesitated on her last shot. Sarah watched her working the problem, calculating wind drift and drop. Rodriguez made a small adjustment and fired. The target rocked back. 10 for 10 at 500, Davis announced, disbelief coloring his voice. Perfect score. Rodriguez, where did you train? College rifle team, sir. University of Alaska. We shot in some challenging conditions. The crowd erupted in whispers. Perfect score on day 1 was unheard of. Patterson was last, and Sarah could see her hands shaking as she approached the line. The pressure of following a perfect score, of being Brad's sister, of representing every woman who'd been driven out before her, was crushing. "Private Patterson?" Sarah called. "A word." Patterson approached, her face pale. "You're thinking about the score you need to beat," Sarah said quietly. "Stop. The target doesn't care about Rodriguez's score. It only cares about where your rounds impact. Shoot your own qualification, not someone else's." Patterson nodded, took a breath, and returned to the line. At 100 yards, her first shot went wide. Sarah saw her flinch, saw the panic start to set in. But then Patterson paused, reset her position, and continued. She finished with 7 out of 10. At 300 yards, the wind had picked up. Patterson struggled, her shots inconsistent. 5 out of 10. She needed at least 6 out of 10 at 500 to pass overall. The crowd was getting louder now, sensing failure. Someone laughed. Patterson's hands shook harder. "Private Patterson," Sarah's voice cut through the noise. "What's Rule 1 of Sniper Fundamentals?" Patterson's voice was barely audible. "Control what you can control, ma'am." "Louder!" "Control what you can control." "And can you control that jackass laughing behind you?" "No, ma'am." "Then why are you paying attention to him?" Sarah's voice was steel. "You have one job right now. Put rounds on target. Everything else is noise. Now shoot your weapon." Patterson's hands steadied. She acquired the first target, held her breath, squeezed. Hit. She worked through her remaining 9 rounds with mechanical focus, blocking out everything except the fundamentals. When the smoke cleared, Davis checked the target. "Patterson, Station 3, 6 out of 10. Overall score, pass." The relief on Patterson's face was overwhelming. She safed her weapon with shaking hands, and when she stood, her brother was there, pulling her into a fierce hug. "You did it," Brad whispered. "You actually did it." Sarah let them have their moment, then called the group together. Today was one qualification. You have 6 months of qualifications ahead of you. Don't celebrate too early, and don't despair too quickly. Tomorrow, we start real training. That evening, Sarah found a note slipped under her office door. It was from Morrison. "Captain, thank you for giving us a fair chance. That's all we ever wanted." 3 days later, the real test came.
The male candidates from the regular course were scheduled to train alongside the women's course for a combined stress evolution. Sarah watched Webb carefully as the groups merged, looking for any sign of his old behavior. Instead, she saw him approach Rodriguez. "Lieutenant, mind if I watch your setup? I'm trying to improve my pre-shot routine." Rodriguez looked suspicious. "Why?" "Because yours is better than mine. Captain Chen showed me the video from your qualification. Your consistency is exceptional."
The suspicion faded slightly. "Sure. I start by checking parallax, then—" As they talked, Morrison approached Sarah. "Is this real, ma'am, or is he playing some kind of game?"
"I think it's real, but stay alert anyway."
The combined evolution was a stress shoot under time pressure with physical exhaustion added. Candidates had to complete an obstacle course, then engage targets within a strict time limit while their heart rates were still elevated. The first male candidate went, finishing with a respectable score. Then Rodriguez, who beat his time and accuracy both. The male candidate congratulated her genuinely, and Sarah felt something shift in the atmosphere. Morrison went next, matching the best male time exactly. Patterson struggled but finished within parameters. Then Webb ran the course. He attacked the obstacles with aggressive efficiency, finished his run, dropped prone, and immediately began engaging targets. His shooting was precise, controlled, despite his elevated heart rate. Time, 1 minute 47 seconds. Score, 9 out of 10, Davis called. "Excellent work, Private Webb." Rodriguez approached him. "That was impressive. How do you control your breathing that quickly after exertion?" Webb glanced at Sarah, who nodded permission. "Captain Chen taught me the 773 protocol. 7 seconds to acquire, 7 to hold, 3 to reset. It helps regulate your autonomic responses." "Could you teach me?" Sarah watched Webb's face cycle through surprise, suspicion that it was a trap, then genuine pleasure at being asked. "Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I'd be happy to." Over the next week, Sarah watched the culture shift in real time. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, but it was there. Male candidates asking women for advice on wind reading, women joining study groups without hesitation, Webb becoming a bridge between the old culture and the new. But not everyone was happy with the changes. On Friday, Sarah received a complaint from Gunnery Sergeant Blake, one of the senior instructors she hadn't had time to retrain yet. "Captain, I need to discuss these female candidates." "Go ahead." "They're disrupting the traditional training flow. The male candidates are distracted. Standards are being adjusted to accommodate them." Sarah's voice went cold. "What standards have been adjusted, Gunny?" "Well, they're getting preferential treatment in equipment assignment. They're getting randomly assigned equipment, same as everyone else. They're being given extra instruction time. They're receiving the same instruction hours as every other candidate, unless you count Private Webb's voluntary after-hours study sessions, which are open to anyone." Blake's face reddened. "Captain, with respect, this diversity experiment is going to get people killed. Women don't belong in sniper school." Sarah stood slowly. "Gunnery Sergeant Blake, you're relieved of instructional duties effective immediately. Report to Colonel Martinez for reassignment." "You can't do that!" "I just did. You have 3 options. Accept reassignment, request a formal hearing to contest my decision, or retire. Choose now." Blake stared at her, then at Davis, looking for support. Davis remained silent, his expression neutral. "I'll be requesting a hearing," Blake said finally. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Dismissed. After he left, Davis approached. "That's going to cause problems. Blake has allies in the instructor cadre." "Good. Let them identify themselves so I know who else needs to be reassigned." Sarah returned to her desk. "How are the 3 women actually performing?" "Rodriguez is top of her class across the board.
Morrison is solid, consistent, professional. Patterson is struggling with confidence, but her fundamentals are sound. And the male candidates' reactions? Davis smiled slightly.
About half are genuinely supportive. A quarter are neutral, just focused on their own performance. The last quarter are resentful, but keeping it quiet because they're afraid of you. I can work with afraid. What I can't work with is active sabotage. The following Monday brought the Advanced Stress course, which combined physical challenges, time pressure, and complex shooting problems. Candidates had to navigate obstacles while carrying full combat loads, then engage targets at varying distances with limited ammunition. Rodriguez crushed the course, finishing in the top 5 overall. Morrison finished middle of the pack, but with perfect accuracy on her engagements. Patterson nearly quit halfway through when she failed to clear a wall on her first attempt, but Webb was there. "Private Patterson," he called. "What did Captain Chen tell you during your first qualification?" Patterson's voice was exhausted. "Control what I can control." "And can you control that you failed the first attempt?" "No." "So try again. Different approach this time." Patterson adjusted her technique, cleared the wall on her second try, and finished the course. Her time was slow, her accuracy acceptable but not exceptional, but she'd finished. That night, Sarah found Patterson sitting alone outside the barracks, crying silently. "Private, what's wrong?" Patterson wiped her eyes quickly. "Nothing, ma'am. I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine. Talk to me." "I'm the weak link, ma'am. Rodriguez is perfect at everything. Morrison is a rock, and I'm barely scraping by. Maybe I don't belong here after all." Sarah sat down beside her. "Do you know how many times I failed during my training?" "You never failed, ma'am. You're you." "I failed my first urban combat course 3 times. I couldn't get the timing right, couldn't move fast enough while maintaining accuracy. My instructors told me I was too small, too slow, that I should accept a different assignment." Sarah paused. "But I didn't quit. I trained harder, got smarter about my approach, and eventually I didn't just pass, I set a course record." "How long did that take?" 8 months. 8 months of failing, adjusting, trying again. The difference between success and failure isn't talent, Private. It's refusing to quit when things get hard. Patterson looked at her hands. "What if I keep trying and still fail?" "Then you fail knowing you gave everything you had. There's no shame in that. The only shame is quitting because you're afraid of failing." The next morning, Patterson was first on the training range, running practice drills before the official day started. Sarah watched her from a distance, seeing the determination in every movement. 2 months into the program, the women faced their first major evaluation, a 7-day field exercise with mixed-gender teams. Sarah deliberately put Patterson with Webb and 2 other male candidates who'd been neutral about the culture changes. The exercise simulated a reconnaissance mission with multiple shooting problems, navigation challenges, and team coordination requirements. Sarah observed from command post, watching through surveillance feeds and spot-checking positions. Day 3, Patterson's team encountered a problem. One of the male candidates, Lance Corporal Davis, injured his ankle during a river crossing. The team needed to decide, continue with reduced capability or abort and accept a failed exercise. Sarah watched Patterson take charge. "We're not aborting. Davis, can you shoot?" "Yes, but I can't move quickly." "Then you're our designated marksman. We'll adjust tactics to keep you in overwatch positions while we maneuver." She looked at Webb. "You good with that?" Webb nodded. "Your call, team leader." They adapted their approach, using Davis as a stationary shooter while the others handled movement and reconnaissance. It wasn't the textbook solution, but it worked. They completed every objective and finished the exercise with the second-best overall score. Sarah was reviewing the after-action reports when Martinez called. Captain, I have good news and complicated news. Which do you want first?
Good news.
Your program is being highlighted as a model for culture change. Other training facilities are requesting your methodology. You're being considered for early promotion to major.
And the complicated news?
Blake filed his formal complaint. He's claiming reverse discrimination, hostile work environment, and abuse of authority. It's going to a board review next month. Sarah felt her jaw tighten.
Let it. I documented every decision, every interaction. My record is clean.
I know it is, but be prepared for this to get ugly.
Blake has supporters who see your changes as an attack on tradition.
Tradition isn't an excuse for discrimination, sir.
I agree. Just giving you a heads up.
The board review came during week 15 of training. Sarah testified for 3 hours, presenting documentation, video evidence, and performance metrics showing improved outcomes under the new system. Blake's attorneys tried to paint her as overzealous, biased against male instructors, pushing an agenda at the expense of combat effectiveness. Then, Colonel Martinez dropped his evidence. Recordings of Blake making explicitly sexist comments about female candidates. Emails showing he'd coordinated equipment sabotage. Testimony from 7 former female candidates detailing the harassment they'd endured under Blake's watch. The board deliberated for 40 minutes and returned with a unanimous decision. Blake's complaint was dismissed, and he was being administratively separated from the Marine Corps for conduct unbecoming.
Sarah returned to the training facility to find her entire class, male and female candidates together, waiting outside her office. Rodriguez stepped forward.
Ma'am, we heard about the board. We wanted you to know we support you, all of us.
Behind her, every hand was raised in agreement. Even the candidates who'd been resentful earlier stood in solidarity.
Thank you,
Sarah said, her voice rough with emotion.
Now get back to training. Your final qualifications are in 2 weeks.
The final qualification was the culmination of everything they'd learned, a complex scenario combining navigation, target discrimination, long-range shooting, and team coordination. Pass rate historically was about 30%. Sarah watched as candidate after candidate tackled the course. Some excelled, some failed. The difference had nothing to do with gender and everything to do with preparation, skill, and mental toughness. Rodriguez finished first overall, breaking the previous course record. Morrison finished in the top 10. Patterson struggled, but completed every evolution, finishing in the bottom third of passing scores. When the final scores were posted, Webb approached Sarah.
Ma'am, I need to tell you something.
Go ahead, Private. During Patterson's final shoot, she was having trouble with wind calls. I helped her read the mirage. His voice was steady. That was against the rules. I'm reporting myself for the violation. Sarah studied his face.
Why did you help her?
Because she deserved a fair chance at success. The wind conditions shifted unexpectedly, and I knew she hadn't trained on that specific pattern yet. I didn't want her to fail because of bad luck.
You understand this could invalidate her qualification?
Yes, ma'am. But lying about it would invalidate everything you've taught me about integrity. Sarah made her decision.
Patterson's score stands. The violation wasn't significant enough to compromise the evaluation.
But you're getting a formal counseling for breaking protocol. Next time you think someone needs help, you report it to an instructor rather than intervening yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Graduation day arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. 23 candidates stood in formation, including 3 women, the first female graduates in the program's history. Sarah watched them receive their Scout Sniper qualifications, their faces showing pride, exhaustion, and relief in equal measure. Martinez presided over the ceremony. These Marines represent the future of our sniper program. They've proven
that excellence has no gender, that teamwork transcends prejudice, and that the only thing that matters in combat is whether you can do the job. After the ceremony, Brad Patterson approached Sarah with his sister. "Captain, I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for Lisa." "Thank her," Sarah said. "She did the work. I just gave her the chance."
Lisa Patterson stepped forward. "Ma'am, I want to request assignment to forward combat units. I'm not afraid anymore." Sarah smiled. "Good. The Corps needs snipers who aren't afraid. Just make sure you're ready for what comes next. Qualifying is one thing. Doing the job is another." "I'll be ready, ma'am. You taught me how." As the families dispersed and the candidates began their checkout process, Sarah stood alone on the range where it had all started. The spot where Webb had kicked her into the mud felt like it belonged to a different lifetime now. Davis approached. "Captain, I got the official notification. You're being promoted to Major and given full control of the program. Congratulations." "Thank you, Chief. None of this works without instructors who care about doing it right." Speaking of which, Webb requested to stay on as an instructor once he finishes his remedial training. I'm inclined to approve it. Your thoughts? Sarah considered. Webb had transformed from the worst kind of bully into someone genuinely committed to helping others succeed. His journey from private to potential instructor would send a powerful message. Approve it, but he goes through the instructor qualification course like everyone else. No shortcuts. Understood. Davis paused. You know what you've built here is going to spread. Other programs are already requesting your training methodology. You've changed more than just this facility. Sarah looked out over the range, thinking about all the women who'd come before. The ones who'd been driven out, told they weren't good enough, denied the chance to prove themselves. I didn't do this alone, Chief. Every person who stood up and chose fairness over tradition, every candidate who supported their teammate regardless of gender, every instructor who put the mission above their ego, they all built this together. But you started it. By being willing to take the abuse, document the truth, and demand better. Someone had to. Sarah turned to face him. The question now is whether we can maintain it. Culture change isn't permanent unless it's constantly reinforced. Then we reinforce it. Every day, every class, until this isn't the new way. It's just the way. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a new class of candidates. 15 men, 7 women, all nervous and eager. Webb stood beside her as a newly qualified instructor, his bearing professional and his attitude transformed. Welcome to Scout Sniper School, Sarah began. Over the next 6 months, you're going to be tested in ways you can't imagine. You'll fail, you'll struggle, you'll question whether you belong here. Some of you won't make it. But those who do will have earned one of the most respected qualifications in the Marine Corps. She paused, making eye contact with each candidate. You're going to be evaluated on one thing only: your ability to do the job. Not your gender, not your background, not who you know or where you came from. Just whether you can perform when it matters. A female candidate in the front row raised her hand. Ma'am, I heard stories about how this program used to be, about the harassment and sabotage. Is that really over? Sarah thought about those 2 days in the mud, about the damaged equipment and cruel words, about 9 attackers dead and a culture transformed through fire and blood. Yes, she said firmly. That's really over. You have my word as a Marine and my promise as your instructor. This program will test you harder than you've ever been tested, but it will test you fairly. The only question is whether you're ready to prove what you're capable of. The candidate smiled. Yes, ma'am. We're ready.
Sarah looked at Webb, who nodded once. Then she turned back to her class. Then let's get started.
Because the Marine Corps doesn't need snipers who look a certain way or fit a specific mold. It needs snipers who can shoot straight, think clearly, and fight fiercely when their brothers and sisters need them most. If you can do that, you belong here, and no one will ever make you feel otherwise again.